Good morning, everybody. Quack, quack, or, whatever time it is when you're listening to this. For me, it is Sunday morning. I've got my coffee right here. I'm going to try to make this a regular thing here. After some reflection, after a night sleeping off either the victory or the loss, I'm going to come here with y'all, just me. It's like a fireside chat as FDR in the nation. Yes, I'm that delusional that I put myself in that category. Well, that's what these are. And every time I take a sip of coffee, I'm going to mute it so I don't gross people out by the sound. But, so that's what the silence is going to be. So let's practice that real quick. And that's what'll kick off every episode. Pretty exciting, I know. Usually that would be an Oregon Ducks mug. But like shout in the third quarter of this game, Oregon versus Idaho, I don't think that we deserve to celebrate. So I'm not going to drink out of the duck mug. I'm not going to, dance around in the third quarter because that was pretty rough, y'all. But maybe not as rough as some of you think, because I know some of y'all are naysayers, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. Week 1, that kind of result against the FCS team, you can read just about anything that you want out of it. The only thing you can't read out of it is that we were fully prepared for week 1. That's the one result where you would have to be truly delusional to believe we are. But if you were gonna say, like, you know what, we got it out of our system, we got a lot to work on, the best the biggest improvement, yada yada yada, is from week 1 to week 2, we all know that, and we're going to win a national championship still, where the trajectory's still there, everything's gonna work out, we just got it out of our system. You could be right there. You could also be right if you were like, this exposed some huge weaknesses, some fatal flaws that in the end will sink the ship. You would be pretty accurate there too. Possibly. Who knows? Only time will tell. Let's get right into it. The reason why so many Duck fans are freaking out, including myself a little bit. I've chilled out. That's why I do this Sunday morning instead of Saturday night. So I can sleep, so I can read up on the Ducks, so I can rewatch the game, which unfortunately I did, but also so I can have a cooler head, because I need a cooler head. 24-14 is not the score. I think we were like 44.5 point favorites, something like that. Quite a few people had Austin like 53,000 or somewhere around there. That's a lot of people coming from out of town to see a game that was at least thrilling. I mean, for like a $10 ticket or whatever, that was worth that. Like, you weren't looking away. You probably weren't leaving early. I wouldn't have. I didn't go though, so I can't really take any credit. 24-14, the number 3 Oregon Ducks versus Idaho, who we surprisingly have a pretty storied history with, is the funny thing. Maybe we'll get into that in the longer episode with Hith and Aaron. But overall, funny thing is, definitely the offense is where we were lacking, specifically the offensive line. I think all these people, there are people that are throwing shade at like Dylan Gabriel, who wasn't perfect, but no one is, who overall actually did pretty well, especially considering his first season here. Anyways, he's been around the block for a while. But it all stemmed from the offensive line. That was clear. That was very clear. The shuffle, the injury to Bedford, which, shifted our center to our right guard, and then suddenly we got a walk-on, Charlie Pickard. that really hurt things very clearly. I don't think you could circle any one individual offensive lineman who was the clear weak link. I think shuffling things around definitely presented a weakness in the entire team, in the most crucial part of the team, the O-line, especially not even especially for us, but for any team. But it was very clear that we were producing a lot of yards, a lot of offense in general, but we weren't getting that surefire push, even with our, again, I would say really good running backs who didn't perform to their usual level. But that's because quite a few times they were getting completely swarmed, which credit to Idaho, but everything needs to come with a big old grain of salt in this game. All the good stuff, all the bad stuff gets even a little saltier when you consider it's against a team with what, like 22 or something less scholarships. That's a pretty tough one. Week one, but still. Yes. I think so. Lalaulu. Still working on these, but yeah, that's it. Wow. Laloulu. Laloulu. Lapani? Laloulu. I just need to get it's early, y'all. Moving who was supposed to be our center, who maybe he wasn't supposed to be our center. I don't know. You know that Lanning wanted Laloulu as the right guard probably because he thought that is the best spot for him, and it may be best spot for him if Bedford isn't good to go. And he was even listed as like questionable, but that may have been gracious and a little gamesmanship. We really don't know when he's coming back. Pickard, bless his soul. Maybe it's a situation, kind of spitballing here, where yes, we have some flexibility, but Pickard really his best spot is at center. And there were some times he was clearly getting picked on, getting double teamed. I think it's more of the connection between the O-line, not necessarily saying like Lalaulu was playing terribly or didn't have a connection with, to the man to his right. But I think it's very likely that they didn't have the connection between like center and right guard that you need even against Idaho. I'll definitely be hitting up Hiffle Day, asking his thoughts. Yeah, man, and it was kind of tough because you could really share the blame on the O-line. Like a Johnny Cornelius had those two different lineup infractions, where all he had to do was look over, check in with the ref, check in with his line. It negated a pretty big play, killed a lot of the momentum, which is the name of the game. Fun stuff, huh? I mean, even Josh Connerly Jr. He had a couple, right? He had a couple false starts or holds. I don't even remember. I'm so furious. I mean the penalties though could just be passed out. It appeared. Oregon Ducks, hell of a team. Now, the funny thing is, and a lot of people pointed this out. I'm gonna get a sip of coffee. Why not? Maybe I'll start announcing that. So in the morning, if you're watching with me in the morning, you can take your sip of coffee. If it's the PM, you can take a shot of, I don't know, whiskey, vodka, rum. Ugh, that sounds gross to me, but take a big old double on the rocks with a twist of sadness. Dylan Gabriel, 41 of 49, 380 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Now, that is good. That is actually a good thing. Now, I know everyone's going to be picking on, funnily enough, what they made fun of Bo Nix for is that he's a dink-dunk merchant. But 41-49, no matter the situation, that is still a good thing you want to see. Sure, these are like easy passes, a lot of quote unquote easy passes, but he was actually distributing them pretty crisp. The ball was coming out of his hands pretty dang quick, and there were few to no dropped passes, honestly, that were passes that receivers should have caught, you know. Obviously, we went for Evan Stewart on that deep one, but that was kind of a prayer. And the real question will forever be, even though I think it's becoming less of a question, considering the last 2 seasons, constantly we were talking about, well, Bo Nix is always going for like a sure thing, checking down, which again, if that's what you need to do, if that's the best option, then that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. We scored a lot of points last year, especially if you combine it with a running game, but you need an O-line for that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But it, and Bo Nix was still, he would go downfield. He still had talent with it. Dylan Gabriel may have a little less arm talent, but is still known to want to do that, is down to chuck it, give his guys a chance. He is known for that. In this game, week 1 against Idaho, it is very, very, very possible, if not likely, Dan Lanning is telling this QB, hey, we're keeping this as vanilla as possible. We know the playbook is more complicated than exactly what we saw in Idaho. It's possible that Oregon couldn't have given us much more than that, even if it was like, okay, open everything up, go deep, everybody. Let's do this crazy play. We've set up this play where, it's a counter, or we're doing something else this time to catch them sleeping. Like, they could have unloaded everything, I'm sure. If how much is there to unload? That's the question. But they were keeping it very vanilla, clearly. That doesn't mean it would have worked if they would add some new flavors in there. Doesn't mean we could have pulled them off or the flavors were good. But yes, this does read like a team, because even though, things were looking pretty bad and it was even a 1-score game in the fourth, like late for a lot of the second half, even though it seems pretty dire, it really did feel like kind of the tortoise and the hare. We all know that, that story where the hare has such a huge advantage and the tortoise is just slowly walking. The rabbit takes a nap, even gets too cocky, and like that's how they lose. This felt like how 99% of the time the race with the rabbit and or the hare and the turtle would have gone naturally. Like the rabbit could have slept, which we did in this game for a lot of it. The rabbit could have like gone to the store, come back to the race, and still won. That's kind of what happened in this game. Like, yes, it was close, but you could see, anyone who was watching it could see our defense was being so dominant. Our offense, there was the one turnover, which is a huge reason why this game was a lot closer. I believe it could have been like if I'm remembering correctly, like 21-0. And that would have felt a lot more insurmountable, probably, for Idaho, even though they were ready to go and loving that it wasn't a blowout, that fueled them every minute the game went on. But that one turnover, which was very uncharacteristic to the style of offense, or not that there's a style of offense that loves turnovers, turning the ball over, but the whole point of this, being this school that's or this quarterback philosophy that's, hey, the check down's fine. We don't need to win it all right now, the hot route is a little slant or a curl or something like that, and if it's open, get it to them, because maybe they'll break off for huge, and it's a sure thing, and it's quick. And this is one thing you're especially good at as a QB senior, as a veteran quarterback, that you can make these decisions quick, and we could be just kind of flying down the field, which we did for quite a bit of yards. Once again, like 380 yards through the air. It was just clear. So much of it stemmed from we didn't really have a running game to rely on, which we did all these last 2 years, really, behind a more veteran offensive line, but pretty similar looking. We miss you, Jackson Powers Johnson, though. And yeah, this should be a safe, reliable thing. We were moving down the field reliably. The defense was shutting them down near completely. So it felt like this game, it was going to take an extra trick play or two. It would have been very, for not to sound to like I'm crapping on a team of underdogs that didn't just like play their butts off and really they were such a well-coached team. There was still always that stiff-armed distance, which is really just Oregon's talent, and that we were in Austin, where it didn't really make us feel better. I think I made Duck fans even more pissed off. There's like, I know we're better than this. We could come on, turn the thing on. I don't know. It's tough to say. I know this is a lot of me just rambling, but that's what FDR did. That's what those fireside chats were. We all know it. Hey, shout out to Jack Lane, Oregon's own, huh? And a Duck fan growing up. He really killed it. I mean, he kind of did bad. 11 of 25, 168, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But he nearly led that team. They really had one drive on offense. It's unfortunate, though, that it was, late in the game and kept it a game. That's just not what you wanted to see. But take that out, and then I personally, they practice against trick plays and such. I'm willing to just about completely forgive that first score that they had, which is the trick play off a quick change of possession, off a deflating change of possession. Again, if I remember correctly, I've watched the game twice. My brain's just dumb. Where we turned the ball over on downs, which that was truly the most humiliating part of the game. I think we can all agree on that as Duck fans. Losing on 4th and 1 to freaking Idaho when the game was on the line, or not quite on the line, but I mean, made it a 1-score game with Idaho. 4th and 1 at the Oregon 36. Dan Lanning does a very Dan Lanning thing, goes for it. There's not even really a point. I mean, if you want to criticize him for it, go for it. I think it's like he saw his defense was crazy good, but more so to the point for Dan Lanning. He was pissed the offense wasn't doing anything. It's 4th and 1. He's got some beef out there. He's got a fullback out of there, even, we weren't running the ball very well, but it's 1 yard, and I'm sure he was thinking, if I can get this drive going, if I can keep it sustained, if we can pick up 1 yard at home against a much less talented team, then we can keep this drive going. It's in the third quarter. We can kill the whole third quarter probably. We can hopefully score a touchdown. 21-0 at the top of the fourth. Yeah, that's not very inspiring offensively, but that looks a lot more. I mean, that's Iowa respectable, right? That's definitely Big Ten respectable. I would be pretty, my tone would be significantly different talking to you right now. Being like, oh yeah, 21-0. If it was 24-0 in the end, it'd be a bit of a letdown, but yeah, sure. That defense, huh? Like we woke up eventually. There'd still be huge red flags about the offense, obviously, but that was a very Dan Lanning moment. Losing that moment on 4th and 1 was not very Dan Lanning. The defense was just not ready to be out there. A trick play happens, kind of gets busted. Maybe shouldn't have even counted, but I remember just feeling very, yeah, we deserve that. Sure, give them that score, like just to wake us up, even like humiliating. Whew. And then in the fourth quarter, outside of the one terrible that other drive where they made it 17-14 on that 6-play 75-yard drive, that was not great. But again, one bad drive, even if it happens in the fourth, that is tough for conditioning wise and stuff. Like we kind of failed there. That is the huge blemish, I would say, for this Oregon D. But that maybe even comes down to like one play. There's that one pass to like Mark Hamper. Otherwise, our team actually did a pretty great job. Our secondary especially did a pretty great job of shutting them down. Our pass rush was lethal. Oh my gosh, you kidding me? We were eating them up in the backfield. I loved it. We only, I mean, they got 217 total yards. Even Idaho, that's awesome. 2 of 12 on third down for them. Meanwhile, our offense, 31 first downs. I think more of the problem was 7 of 16 on third down, 1 of 3 on fourth down. That is all. I'm not really looking into it, but it really felt like the majority of that was because we didn't have a run game to back us up in these crucial moments. Third down, a lot of those times we were running the ball because it's a sure thing. Or, Dylan Gabriel was checking down a bit. I'm sure Dan Lanning is not telling him always go for the 5 to 10 yards. Never go for even 15 yards out, 20 yards. Because there were guys open. He was probably just feeling that O-line letting him down a little bit. I still have all the faith in Dylan Gabriel. Not really fair to compare him to Bo Nix, but I mean, it will be once we see more games. I think that's a fair assessment. I don't know. I'll shout out some individual players that I really like seeing and stuff like that, but then I'll get out of here because we're all bummed. I put on this hat to make me feel better and didn't work. Didn't work. Still sad as hell, yo. Still sad as hell. I'm gonna drink some coffee. Cups up. All right. You're either caffeinated or wasted. Dylan Gabriel. I'm still happy to see you. Still happy you're on the team. All right. I love you, buddy. Jordan James, 15 carries for 95 yards, 6.3 average, which is pretty good considering that O-line getting blown up and tossed around by an FCS team. Oh, God, I'm scared for next week. 1 touchdown for Jordan James. That is the only rushing touchdown we got. You don't like to see it. The rushing long was 16 yards. And I think it's because a lot of times there's already getting a lot of arm tackles, even when they were lucky enough to emerge from the O-line. I'm sure a couple of those Jordan James and Noah Whittington would like back, but overall, I think actually they did pretty good getting what they could get even. Noah Whittington, 33 yards. I mean, 2.4 average. But again, I'm not really going to blame him because, oh, man, it's hard to do when the blockers ain't blocking. Terrence Ferguson obviously had a huge game. It's very clear Dylan Gabriel's kind of, I mean, at least for week 1, That's a safety blanket, but he's a good safety blanket. 7 receptions, 87 yards. Got us a lot of those first downs. Tez Johnson, another go-to for him. 81 yards, 12 receptions. That's amazing. 12 receptions. So, I mean, that's the thing that I'm still very confident with. Don't poo-poo all these, chain moving receptions and such like that. Like, I think that is going to be a consistent thing. And he's spreading the ball really well. A lot of people got catches in this. And a lot of these catches were impressive too. And I don't know, like it's not like he was airballing and being off. And in this section of the game, I think he did pretty dang good. Jordan James caught 4 balls, 40 yards. Kenyon Sadiq, everyone's very stoked about my man. And he looked freaking good. Trayshawn Holden, it was good to see him. He was one of many people that stepped out of the game for a bit. Dylan Gabriel, obviously, with that hand. Dan Lanning, he's either playing it off cool or he's being sincere when he's like, oh, I don't think it's an injury. Don't worry about the hand. But they told us about Vernon Adams, the same thing. Yeah. So that'll probably be fine, though. Obviously, we need our O-line to get a little healthy. We need Bedford to come back. We love you. Or to start playing for us. We'll see what happens, y'all. Bryce Betcher out there. I mean, that's because Jeffrey Bassa was injured in the first quarter. Again, this is kind of just an unlucky game for us, too, a little bit there. The captain of our defense is injured. Comes up a little gimpy. Played in the fourth quarter, too. Dan Lanning said it was kind of like, do we need you out there? We'd rather you not take the risk, So it seems like he's doing all right, as far as we know. Derek Harmon had a very fun game. 2 tackles for a loss. Come on, guys. Mateo Uiagalelei. Damn, he looked good out there. Young Concrete. 2 sacks. 2 sacks. We had 4 sacks overall. Brandon Johnson was showing off why people were very excited about him. He had that defensive pass interference, but that was... I'm kind of all right with it. He even was trying to look back. Like, it was not the most egregious thing in the world. And he had that amazing pick. Holy cow. I legit don't know whose pick was better, because both of them were really, really dang good. Yeah. Like, Nico Reed, like, a lot of people, besmirching his name, but that was... He ended this terrible game. Got to give him that. And then, yeah, Brandon Johnson. Like, that first quarter, that first half, I'm okay with quite a bit of it, except for, fumble. That fumble spelled bad things for the Ducks. That was a really tough one to swallow. I don't know about Tez Johnson returning. I'm with y'all. I'm kind of... I loved Oregon being crazy good. I love the DeAnthony Thomas days of returning and stuff like that. But also, it seems like it's just getting less and less important in the game. And it freaks me out. I'm a coward, all right? I don't want anyone getting injured. 7 tackles for a loss. That'll do. That's pretty dang good. Only 1 turnover. I guess that's good. Y'all, what else there to say? I'm tired, clearly. The hat did not make me happy. I'm still very stoked. Please, God, don't make me cover a loss to Boise State, because I don't think my heart can handle it. I hate that team. I can't imagine losing to Oregon State either. Don't make me do it. I love you, Duck fam. We're going to get through this. It was a win. We should be happy, I guess. I don't know, y'all. Go Ducks.